can reach into people, amazing people, well-educated people, and they ask you stuff like, "So do you have a lion?" And you're like, "Where did you get that from?" And it could be at first when I was in India, all those things should be offensive. I was still full of ego. I was young. I thought I was cool from Uganda until I realized I wasn't. So you start understanding that people are innocent, but they're
Mhm.
innocently racist, and like you don't know what kind of what that is, but it's there.
Mujevale, Mujevale, Mujevale. My name is Bani Kibuka, and welcome to another episode of the Ugandan Ball Talk Show. What's up, my brother? How are you doing?
I'm really, really fine. I'm really fine. I'm so sorry that we missed the time,
I know. That's crazy. So I woke up this morning and then I opened my
Yes.
phone and I see, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready. Are you there? And I'm like, what? Did I miss something? And then I check the calendar. The calendar is saying 28th. I'm like, I check out
Yes.
messages that I sent you later and they were like 28th. So then in my head, I'm like, oh, they're 11 hours ahead of us. So that means that was 11 hours ago. Like,
No, I figured it out. I realized that maybe you miss it. I make that mistake. When it's the 28th here, it's the 27th in the States. Okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, but at
No,
least
that was my bad. That was my bad. I was like, I'm really good at like keeping time on appointments and like
mm.
good at that. But the way I missed that, I was like, dang, no, there's no way I missed that. Like I told my wife this morning, I'm like, I miss it. It's like, yeah, you could have thought about that. Like,
Seriously, I thought you had done me the Ugandan thing. I'm like, this is wrong. Okay, this
yeah.
is wrong.
I
It can't
know.
happen. I called my wife. She was like, "Did you do the podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I think he has played the Ugandan thing on me. He didn't keep the time."
Yeah.
I was just like, but I know,
That's that's
I know.
funny.
It was
It's
interesting. You just
it's
missed the
funny you
time.
called it. It's funny you called it a Ugandan thing because I just recorded a podcast with another guy from Uganda, but he's in the
Yeah,
States, and
yeah.
so we were supposed to record a 9, and then he explained the reason why he was late, but I made a joke on him when I came, like, hey, so you can tell a Ugandan by how they keep time. It's like, yeah, we just need to keep our roots going.
I know. That's
No,
awesome.
but John, Mochiri, welcome to my podcast, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure, and I'm humbled, by the way, that you
Uh,
considered me to be in your podcast, man. I'm
the,
humbled. I'm humbled.
I think I feel the same way. Like I'm humbled. Like I don't even know how I got connected to you through Instagram. I don't know. I think the mutual friend was the Valas podcast. I think that's what it all
Yes.
happened because
Yes.
I connected with him, and then that's how I got connected to you. Um,
Yes.
and I've been following your work that you do. It's amazing. And today,
Thank you.
when I bring guests on my podcast, I usually have like interview questions. I do research on them, but like recently,
Yeah.
I've started on
Yeah.
just doing freestyle, kind of just getting
Yes.
surprised on the podcast and just teaching myself that. Because when I do the interview questions, it kind of pushes me and takes me, like, it makes me just focus on the questions I have on my paper. Whereas
Yeah. Yeah.
with the freestyle, I want to listen, and from what
Yeah.
you say, then I can ask questions from that, and it flows better when it's natural than planned. So
No, that's true.
that's what
That's
I
true.
like. Yeah, but
That's good,
yeah.
man. Mm.
So to begin the podcast, I just want to get a little bit about your background, and I know with the name Mukiibi, you're from Uganda. Actually, one of my cousins is Mukiibi. Mukiibi, where did that?
Yes. Nedira Lugave Sebo.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
want to know a little bit about your background, especially the Ugandan background before you moved
Yeah.
where you are. We'll get to that part
Yeah.
later on. Mhm.
Yeah. 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 I was born in Uganda, I was raised there. I went to school in Uganda. I was born around. I grew up around Makindye. So if you know Makindye, that's where I grew up. I grew up around Chibuye. I used to roam the streets.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
Do you know the guy Jesse?
Jesse?
10S?
Jesse. I know Jesse. We've been friends for ages.
He's from Makindye. Yeah,
we've been friends for ages. And I like his music, and he's doing so well. And we've really been friends for some good time. And we have mutual friends, childhood mutual friends. So, and us both having grown up from church, we share a few friends. Somehow we get to know each other. Yeah, so as I was saying, I grew up around Makindye, grew up from a pastor's family. I went to good schools. For that, I went to good schools. Did my primary school at the Brighton Boarding School. Then did my secondary at Seroma Christian High School.
Seroma.
And then, I moved to India to do my university. So that's how life begins. And after university.
So do you have any siblings?
Of course I do, man.
Yeah.
We are 6. We are actually 6, and I'm the second last born in my family. So we are 3 girls and 3 boys.
Yeah, I was gonna be surprised because there's no African family that doesn't have like siblings, and for most of the people I've hosted podcasts from 6 and above, I'm like, that's Africa.
I know, but gone are the days, man. Life has changed.
I know.
You get 6 kids, it's expensive.
Yeah, actually, we are only 2. Me and my brother, my big brother Benjamin. So we're only 2 boys, and my parents only had 2 boys. But my dad, he's like, I was gonna actually ask you. You mentioned you grew up in a pastor's family. I grew up in a pastor's family. My dad is a pastor. My dad's a pastor, and he has like a girls' home with the church ministry, what they do. So that's kind of how I have other siblings through the church. And
for sure. I get that, man. We have a lot of people. I mean, growing up, I could get back home from boarding school and you meet all these kids are like, who is this? And they're like, who is this? And that's how life has been, okay?
Right.
And so going to university, every time you come back to Uganda, you meet all these kids, you're like, who is this? I don't even know who to bring for a gift or anything. So I'm just gonna bring gifts. I used to just bring gifts from my mom and my dad before he passed away. I'm like, that's it. I don't know. But it's good to be around such a family. It's really good.
I know you kind of touched it a little bit, but like, what was your experience like growing up in a pastor's family? I mean, I have my own experience. I want to hear what yours
honestly, that's a topic that's so personal to me, which I like to discuss for sure. And I think it's something I'm really gonna get into. You see, I don't want to blame my dad. He did what he knew, and for that, I think as I've become a dad, I've understood that they didn't know much. But you see how we grew up. We grew up in a good family. Honestly, it was a good family. Does that make sense? I can't even, people admired us. But you realize having a father who is the father to everyone, you start missing out a few things.
Yep.
And I think for me as a man, it started affecting me in a certain way. So growing up, I had all these big dreams and I still have them. But somehow, because of the community we were surrounded with, you were somehow expected to run the church too. And I didn't say I didn't like it, but I knew it wasn't me.
Right.
But the way to express that, till today, I still struggle with that. So I realized that I need to create my own voice, to be like, hey, I know this is what you expect from me, but I just have to unlearn a lot of things. And I'm still struggling with it sometimes because you realize that this is the move that has just taken me to this side of personal development. Where can my voice be? Because I don't see myself being in a church. I don't see that. I hate it, honestly. I hate it.
That's the same thing.
But
I'll cut you short a little bit there because that's the
yeah,
same thing I went through. My dad's a pastor, and
yeah.
everybody thinks that your dad being a pastor, you're going to be a pastor. And I remember when I was moving out, when I was coming to the United States, my dad would be like, "Oh, you're gonna,"
Yes.
and I've preached at church, like I've spoken at church, I've done teaching kids, and every time you
Yeah, yeah,
speak, people will be like, "Oh yeah, you're such a good speaker. Like you have you
yeah.
considered being a pastor?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And my dad was, I told my dad I'll never be a pastor because you mentioned something
Yes.
about when you run a church, it takes away a
Yeah.
lot of your time that you have to attend to all these other people, and sometimes you get locked into that, which I think my
Yeah.
dad has been in that too. Like he gets locked into a lot of members in the church, which is it is his duty,
Mm.
like he has to do
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But
Yep.
sometimes it takes him a lot, like you mentioned, like you being a father right now, you see that like sometimes you need time to your kids, which was not really
It's
something
not.
at that
It's not
time.
even
Yeah,
sometimes, bro. It's all the time.
yeah.
It's all the time. First thing that struck me, my current wife, then she was my fiance. We go and visit them. I go. They come and visit us in Uganda. So we move. We just go to Uganda to see the family and stuff. And
Mhm.
then I went to visit them at their beach house in Kenya, and these guys were a family. They spoke about everything.
Mhm.
They spoke about money. So someone broke a glass in the house, and she was like, "Hey, I broke that glass." I was like, "Wait, do people do this?" So, and I knew that there was that side of family, but I saw it in movies. Okay, and I knew,
Right,
we were trained to be hard, and I
right.
realized that as a man, I had to lose that hardness I thought manhood is all about. And I had to understand that, what, this takes away from us, especially Black kids, and leave alone the Black kids, especially Black kids who grew up in the church. And you realize that the problem is not God. God is good. God is a good father.
Mhm.
And you realize that our fathers don't know any better, too.
Yeah,
So you get caught up in that thing that only pastors' kids know what they go through, that nobody can really say it or tell it. Like recently, my father died, and we had to go back to Uganda. A lot of pastors in Uganda, big shots, everybody was there. They had all these amazing stories. And I couldn't say a lot about my dad, man. I'm like, I didn't know this guy. And it
mhm.
it pained me. I knew my dad wanted me to know about him, but it was all about church.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Like he
Yeah,
likes
it
you to
does.
know something, but all
Yeah.
he wants you to know is to be involved in ministry. And it's good. But
Mhm.
I knew that this is not what God has called me to do. I
Yeah.
knew it deep inside me.
Uh,
And yeah, so that's a
that
more sad.
that
Yes, sir.
really you bring up a very big a good topic which I didn't even plan to talk about like knowing like what we have in common.
Yeah.
We're able to talk about it because some of the experience you go through, some of the experience I go through. The good thing about my dad is he doesn't force me into what he's doing. Like, and I'm
Good.
open to him. I tell him, hey dad, I don't think that's for me. Like, I don't, that's not what I want to do. And he knew when I was younger, like what I wanted to do. But don't get me wrong, and the listeners don't get us wrong. We love, like you mentioned, I love God. I love God a lot. Like
Yeah,
nothing can
yeah, yeah,
take
yeah.
that out of me. And God has been blessing in my life, and I love to serve Him, but not as a
Yes.
pastor. But I can serve Him.
I love that. I love that.
Not
I
as a
love
pastor.
that. And I'm so happy that you've embraced this side. Seriously, I know I have this side of me that
Yeah.
I know I have it, but I don't
Mhm.
think it's connected for church
Right.
because I think the message we have is broader than church. And I think
Mhm.
that's one thing that we forgot. The message is broader than church. You see, I was listening to somebody say, actually, it was Jamal Brandt, and it was like, the church is 20 years behind the
Mhm.
world we are living in. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so, and I believe everybody's called to influence the world. I believe everybody's called to create change and to impact. But if we are not going along with what is happening with the world, if you're not advancing with the world is so fast. We are losing out on certain potential. So I don't want to be around people who are slow, not in a bad way.
Okay.
Not in a bad way. But you see, there is much more. Doesn't make sense. There is much more.
Right.
And I believe that much more, someone has to put it out there. Like what you're doing. Look at your podcast, interview, bring all these stories from all the Ugandans around the world. Man, that's beautiful, bro. That's beautiful. Someone has to tell our story.
That's the same thing I was going to say about you, which you make a very good point. Like, not all of us, not everybody's called to be in the church, but like what you do too, like your inspiration, just waking up every day, like, hey, somebody out there needs to hear this. And like we all, like we not only just grow spiritually, but we grow through other things in life too. Like, yeah, we need to grow spiritually to know about God, but we need to grow about finance. We need to grow about relationships. We need to grow about like many different ways. And if everybody is making one person grow in one area, then what about the other areas? Like, who is going to be there to teach? And that's how you come in, like, to impact people's lives in another way.
And that's it. You see, I'm sorry to go through this direction, but you see, Africans pray a lot, a lot.
Yeah, they do.
But the results of the prayer that Africans pray are so little. And for me, growing up from a family where people pray, for me, I've seen a certain side. Okay, that it takes God to convince me that this is the only way out. So I travel as a young child. I see this beautiful life from people we were told were sinners. I was like, something is wrong. These people live a certain life that's so admirable. That's so admirable, but they don't believe in our God. What is the secret? And of course, though, how people interpret stuff, I'm like, no. You can't tell me that guy is driving a Ferrari and he's sad, according to you, and you've not even been inside his Ferrari to see if he's sad. Those guys are not sad. So we psych our brains with all these beautiful things to seal our mediocrity, that kind of thing where we seal our ignorance and we think that's the truth, just because we can't even explain why it's the truth. But they're sad. But those people are not sad. I've been around those people. Those people are happy. Those people are happy. So you realize that what do they know that we don't know? We are so unbalanced in certain ways. You realize that Africans pray so much. The way that continent prays, if those prayers were equal to infrastructure, we would be the richest. But we are still the richest continent in everything: manpower, energy, minerals. So you realize that there is a certain side we've not given heed to as Africans, as a continent, that needs to be out. Look at us. How many kids do you know are in multimedia? How many African kids are hitting it on YouTube?
Right.
And all these things disturb me as a creator. I'm like, yes, one person can do everything. How many African bloggers do you know? How many African writers do you know? And yes, the system is not set for Africans, but somebody has to tell our story. And it has to be us.
That's definitely right. And that's why we're here. That's why we come in.
That's why I get excited.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to have you and the opinion you have. Like, I really respect people's opinion and the views that you bring up. These open our minds, and like, I'm really happy to grow, to learn from somebody like you. You do most of the same thing I do, like you coming out there to bring inspiration to the people and telling them, hey, you can live life like this way. But to go back into your story, like you mentioned you went to India for university. What did you go to India to study?
So the plan is I wanted to be a pilot. Okay, so I got admitted to China. In China, you know how it is. You come from those kind of families. You're expected. Much is expected of you, and if God has blessed you enough, there is some money. it can be done. And so, yeah, I get everything ready for China. Somehow it didn't work as I expected it to. So I moved to India. I really loved computers. I really loved computers with a passion. Okay. So somehow my parents agreed to the Indian deal, and India was half of whatever was, So I moved to India. And man, that's where the shock began. You see, growing up in Africa, when you're quite blessed in a certain way, people respect you. You know that, right?
Yeah.
People respect you. Somehow, people respect
Yeah.
you. Just, if your dad has a Pajero car, people respect you.
That's true.
I went to India and everybody thought I was a monkey. It took away my ego. I was like, damn. So India humbled me. I realized I wasn't important as I was. That's the first lesson I learned from India. So that turned this kid into, I don't know. My story is about India more emotional, but they made me a man, People were just evil in a certain way.
Wow.
People were kind of evil in a certain way, but I still met the most loving people in India that till today, those people still have been my parents. They still love me. They still call me that even they fly to Bangkok to visit me. So there is these two spectrums. But what I got from India was, you learn that the world does not rotate around you. And I think that's a problem we have as Africans. And I'm sorry, I use Africans because I've been around many of them, okay? Does that make sense? So I see it.
No, it's most of African countries are kind of the same. Like we all do the same thing. Like when you when you call it Africa, it's everybody will kind of understand.
Yeah, so that's what I think I got from India. It was harsh. It was tough. It was tough, man. I grew up. It was tough.
Do you think? Do you think like that? People thinking you're a monkey was that? I mean, some people can relate that to racism. Do you think you will take it like that?
No. I think Indians are racist, and I think we don't have to pretend that people are not racist. You see, Ugandans are just Indians. Were we polite to them? No. Okay, so when Indians consider us racist, we can't defend and be like, no, it happened. Okay, so Indians are racist in nature, but it's more of institutional racism and discrimination that's just taught. Because in India, there was still caste culture that certain castes are very high, other castes are so low. Certain people, like our cleaners, couldn't come into our gate with their shoes. They could leave the shoes at the gate. So you saw that even among even the Indian people, they were discriminating. So what about you, an African? How do you explain that? Moreover, from Uganda. So I think that they were racist, but not everyone is a racist there. I need to make that clear. Yeah, because I met the most amazing people till today from India.
I would say the same thing about the United States. Like, there's, and I mean, everybody in the world hears about United States racism. Like, I think United States is like the top country. But that doesn't take away that there's some people who are not racist. My wife is American. She's white. Like, so there. And her family loves me. Like I work, the place where I work, I'm the only black person there, and they're all white and they're all Americans, but they treat me like I'm just one of them, which was not the case at the place that I worked last year. Last year, I worked at you mentioned you wanted to be a pilot. I'm actually an aircraft mechanic. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, but, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I work on private jets and like maintenance them, like fix them and all that. I've flown two before, but then I chose to be a mechanic, so other than being a pilot. But
that's good.
The place I worked at last year, I was the only black person there. And those guys would make you feel like you are the only black person in the building because of the way they treat you, the way everything is done. But like where I'm working right now, I'm the only black person there. But sometimes I forget I'm the black person there because everybody treats you the same way. So that's a comparison that you can work in the same situations, like you're the only black person, but then the people make you feel different than the other. So not everybody's a racist, but that doesn't take away that there's some racist people like
Mm.
wherever we are. So that's what I'll take away from that. And
Mm.
so what happened with your dream to be a pilot?
I really didn't like it. It was my dad's dream, and it's a good thing,
Yeah, yeah.
nothing, I mean, but I think we got the opportunity to choose. I think
Mhm.
that's one thing I'm so grateful for my parents. Yes, they were Ugandan, they were not any different, but they gave us an opportunity to choose.
Mhm.
Honestly, I appreciate that. And you realize that you go out and you meet other black kids, and you realize you're so different. You play
Mhm.
tennis, you play hockey, and you're like, hey, you're so white. You're like, what does that
Yeah.
even mean? Does that make
Exactly.
sense? You like swimming, you're snorkeling, and you realize that you do things black people don't do. And actually,
Mhm.
I've seen that when I'm away from Uganda, but
Yeah,
that was normal at home. So
that's true.
I'm so grateful that they gave us that opportunity not to see that until I travel and you're somewhere and you're like, you're black. So what does that mean? But they're all
That makes
lessons
a
to
lot of sense.
us. Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, they're all lessons, and some of the things you say hit home for me because like hang out like in America, I go back to Uganda and say like, oh, you're so white. He's now American. He doesn't do this. But like sometimes just like some of these things are just good for you. So
Yeah.
about your family, you mentioned in the
Yes,
beginning
sir.
that you have your own family.
Yep.
Tell us about your family and how you
Yeah.
guys met. And
So
uh-huh.
first of all, I have a beautiful wife. She is amazingly beautiful. And yeah, we met in Bangkok at a at a jazz bar. I like to play bass. I like to play drum. I like music, and she likes music. And she comes from a heritage of music. Her dad is like a big shot in the UK, where he's from. He's an amazing guy. He's been on orchestras around Italy. So they just come from a heritage of music. And the beautiful part about it, she's white, British, but her grand, her, no, her mom was white Kenyan.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, because
so
I
that's
remember you
tribe.
mentioned something about Kenya. I'm like, is your wife from Kenya?
So
Like, I don't
that's
think so.
tribe. Yeah. So that struck the whole thing. So meet, I meet this white girl who is so African. I'm like, she wants to walk. I don't want to walk. Okay. She was like, but you walk. I'm like, we didn't walk.
We didn't like
She wanted.
walking.
We didn't like walking. Okay. I was like, wait, we had cousin. We're taking to school. We didn't walk around like you. But she grows in Kenya, where they come from. It's along the beach, beautiful place in Malindi. So she sees the normal Africans, okay? I don't want to say normal, but you know what I mean. If
Yeah.
you're African listening, you understand what I mean. So she sees that normal life. But somehow, if you've grown up in certain families, somehow you were protected from that life in a certain way. You don't even know until you're away from Africa. You're like, wow, I'm grateful that my parents gave me the opportunity to see these things as normal. Yet they're not.
Mhm.
So one day we dated, and that East African connection kind of just linked us up. She speaks more Swahili than I do.
Mhm.
Sometimes when we fly to Kenya, we are at the airport and everybody's like, "Hey," I'm like, I don't speak Swahili. Like, and then it's like your white wife is speaking Swahili. It looks so weird to the Kenyans, okay? But I'm like, just don't judge me, okay? I just feel.
That is funny. That is really funny.
No, so she's that kind of, but yeah. So she's from the UK. So born and raised in the UK, but mom was white Kenyan. So all their life they've been going to Kenya for all their lives. So they know
Mhm.
so much about Kenya, and we've got an opportunity to always go there once in a while. And I have two kids. The first is Malaika Grace Mukiibi, beautiful. And then the next, my youngest daughter is Imelda Grace Mukiibi. Yes, sir. So
That
that's
is that is interesting.
all about my
I
family.
like the bit of like when you're talking about your wife and where she's from. That is funny. I was like, that's funny. Um, we have a lot of things that are in common. I would say like opposite. My mom is Kenyan. My mom was born Kenyan.
Whoa,
My
that's
my
beautiful,
dad is
man.
Ugandan. So my mom is Kalenjin. She's from Eldoret, and so we used to go to
Wow.
Kenya every time. I actually took my wife to Kenya in when did we go? Last year. So we went there, and I mean, I speak a little bit of Swahili. She only speaks English and some a little
That's
bit of
good.
French. But yeah, the experience when I took her to Kenya, she liked it, and then I took her to Uganda. But yeah, she's born American, and her
Yeah.
experience was because we drove from Uganda to Kenya, so
Wow.
leaving the border, or at
Mm.
I think it was Malaba, going into
Yeah.
Kenya, we
Yeah.
were pulled over by the police. Like they
Yeah.
pull you over, and they
Yeah.
saw there's a white lady in the car. So there was like, there's money in
It's a
this car.
Muzungu.
It's a
Yeah.
Muzungu.
I
We
get
need
that. I get
money.
that. I get that.
So, and she's terrified with police because the police in Africa, they carry these
Yeah.
big guns, like,
Yeah.
like they have this AK-47. She's like, oh my God, they're gonna shoot us right now. She's like, and they were asking for a bribe. But for me, it's normal because I'm used to that.
Yeah.
They pull you over, they want money, and then you can go back and forth with them. I'm not giving you money. You're giving me money. Give me this. Give me 10,000. No, I'm giving you 6. How about 3? But all the time we were there, she was like, no, this is getting weird. This is getting weird. And she was starting like to freak out, and she was like, money, just give them whatever money they want. And I feel bad to give them that. But I was understanding in her situation. So that was a little bit of her experience in Kenya. But she was like, next time we're flying to Kenya. I'm not driving to Uganda.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I've followed you on Instagram. I like the pictures of your family, and you guys have a lot of fun. You seem like you're a world traveler, so you've been to like all places. But the one thing I wanted to ask was like, how the heck then did you end up in Bangkok?
Yeah, so the story goes, I come from India, so much into computers. I still love computers, just so I come with these plans. I want to develop Uganda. You know what I mean? You've seen the world, you've traveled a bit, you're like, you still have that, I want something different. And so thank God I got an opportunity to work with investors coming to Uganda. So we brought in a few Thai investors to construct roads in Uganda. And you know how things work in Uganda? The whole project has been done for years, but the technology is so good, so cheap. It cuts over 70% of what we spend, but you know how things work. We rent to offices here and there. So out of that frustration, it just was like, these guys are not ready to change. So because I had already had connections in Thailand, and I had been a junior professor in India, so I came to Thailand and started teaching computers in a university. And since then, settled in Thailand. I love it. I don't call it home because here, the way it is set, you don't get citizenship and you're just there to work. You make the money, you make it. It's a beautiful tropical country, amazing beaches. Oh my God.
Yeah, I see from your pictures, I'm like, that's beautiful. Like I would die to be there. Like I see from your pictures, I'm like, that's amazing. And
so just right, that's the kind of thing. So I love it here. So here in Thailand, I'm a teacher, I'm a science teacher, stayed in teaching, focused in teaching. Yeah, but the traveling part I do is something I love to do. Uganda, twachitanga kwenjera. It's still part of me. It's still part of me. So, and because this place offers so much, and Southeast Asia offers so much, so the travel is so cheap. Not cheap, of course, but it's affordable. It's closer from here. You have Malaysia, you have Singapore, you have Indonesia, you have Taiwan, and all these countries have amazing beaches. Next to Australia, all these are tropical beach countries. Right. So what else do you need, honestly? And so that's how I get hooked up there. Yes, sir.
That's really good, and happy for you. And I would like anybody, people who are listeners who are not even following you on Instagram, they should check out your Instagram page to understand a little bit from the pictures of what you're talking about, like all these beautiful beaches and just seeing a beautiful family and you guys having fun. On top of that, you started a podcast. Is it The Shift?
The Shift podcast.
What made you start a podcast? Like, what? I know we've talked a little bit about me having a podcast and bringing these stories, but like, what pushed you into the field and you're doing what you do now with the motivation and everything you do with the shift?
Yeah, it started, thank you. It started with the traveling I used to do around. And I realized that I was the only black kid in all of those places I went to. And it bothered me, it really bothered me. You could go, and a lot of times back then I was still young and cheap. I could stay in dormitories. And so you meet all these different people from all over the world, but you're the only black person there. And so you could get interesting questions, innocent, but interesting, and can be offensive if you think the world rotates around you. So that started the spicytraveler.com, just documenting my journeys around the world as a black kid, okay? And then that just pushed me to realize that, you know what, nobody's gonna tell our story, because you could reach into people, amazing people, well-educated people, and they ask you stuff like, so do you have a lion? And you're like, where did you get that from? And it could be, at first, when I was in India, all those things used to be offensive. I was still full of ego. I was young. I thought I was cool from Uganda until I realized I wasn't. So you start understanding that people are innocent, but they're innocently racist. And they don't know what that is, but it's there. And you realize, I was like, wow. And one time I was on this one beautiful island, and we were on the dormitory, sat down, in the lobby. And then this girl walks in, she's like, hey, when they say black person, they try not to be racist. They try to be like, hey, we're advanced, we like you guys, that kind of thing, they try. And I understand. I don't need that effort because I'm too white than they are, but you chill, you chill. You don't want to make them uncomfortable, but so minding my business. So this amazing girl, beautiful girl, Canadian. She's like, so you speak African? I was like, what do you mean? And that clicked. And I'm like, okay, this is wrong. Somebody has to tell our story. Somebody has to share the stories about Africa. And that pushed me into just writing. And after the writing on the spicytraveler.com, it pushed me to be like, people need to hear this. And so, but I realized that even though people needed to hear this, there should be a purpose as to why. Because this space is so huge. But I'm sorry, yeah, and I understand. But you realize that certain people, control it.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? So those questions disturbed me, So that disturbance, like, we need an African voice in this.
And that's the same thing. That's the same thing that when you say it happened in India, it's the same thing happens in the US, and people ask you those questions. At first, like you said, at first you're like, oh, maybe somebody doesn't know. But then it goes on to just somebody just trying to, I don't know what so there's a lady, she asked me, I don't know if she was trying to be nice or she was trying to be mean to me. She's like, have you ever seen a refrigerator?
That was being
oh my
mean.
God. I was like, oh my God. It's like, yeah, I've seen a refrigerator. And she was like, do you know how to use a refrigerator? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. Sometimes those questions just get me off, and I'm like, I don't know if she's trying to be mean. But some people just use that just to be mean against you, like in a bad way. I'm like, sometimes I can't tolerate something like that. But yeah, it's hard. I've never actually even thought about it. Like, now that you're talking about it, I'm thinking like some people use these to just get to you. There's a lot has happened to me in that area of like people asking, so do you guys sleep on trees? How did you come to the US?
Oh man,
do you guys have cars in Uganda? Or like,
I have a beautiful story.
God.
Finish. I'm sorry to
no, like I was just giving you some of the examples of questions like people say here in the US.
So in India, we like to ride bikes, what I mean? Big bikes, and it's my thing. So I'm with this big bike. So in India, when you have a big bike, you're respected. You're a big boy, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's it. And as a student, with a little money, your parents can afford a big bike. So I had a big bike. And so when they see it, it's a threat, which is okay. To them, it's a threat.
Mhm.
But there's this black dude having this big bike. So one guy is like, how did you come to India? I was like, of course I fly into Africa. He's like, nay, nay, nay. He's like, no. I'm like, why? He's like, Africans cannot fly. I'm like,
Mhm.
why? It's like, no, that's why you have big bikes. You rode your big bike from Africa and you put it on the train to India. So he believes that the reason that's why Africans can afford the big bikes is they use those bikes to ride from Africa,
Mhm.
get on a train in India, and come to study. So I realized that how does even a man process that in his brain?
Mhm.
A man who speaks English, a man who is educated.
Exactly.
It's those little things.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
I was just gonna say, actually, you just made me think of a point, like, especially the United States. I'll speak from the United States because that's where I live.
Yes.
It's a first world country. They have
Yep.
access to everything. They can
Yep.
Google what's happening in Uganda today, tomorrow, yesterday. But like even people having access to that can help them educate themselves about what's happening in Uganda right now. They don't do that. And that's what makes me think it's an insult, because if somebody has a phone, has a computer, they can Google like, hey, do they have cars in Uganda? Then they'll see cars in Uganda. Do they have refrigerators in Uganda? Then they'll see those. But if somebody ignores that education that they can get through the internet, through like getting themselves learn, it's makes me think that sometimes they just say it in a bad way. And you mentioned something, you said a bike, but in my latest episode I talked about, no, actually the episode that I released with Miss Uganda, I was talking about how some people like working in the United States as an aircraft mechanic, like I'm from Uganda, a third world country, but here am I in the United States working with the Americans and making the same amount of money. So they see that as a threat. And you say something like that, like when you have something nice in India, they'll see it as a threat. Like they see that as a threat, like this kid is from a third world country from Uganda, he's here making in our country, making the same amount of money. And they use that against you. And that's like the root cause of like I don't know if I'll call it racism, but like just the hate that they have for you achieving that. Like you did the same training, you went to the same school, you qualified to have that position. It's not that your boss picked you up. Oh, this is a kid from Uganda. He's a poor kid. Let me bring him and hire him. You went to school for that. You qualified and got your license to do the job. So you worked hard to be there. And that I take that as an offense when somebody looks at you like that, like, hey, dude, I studied for this.
I understand. Getting back, I understand what you're talking about, actually. But getting back to what you're saying, that they could Google. You see, I used to think they should Google, but you see, it's white people who write Google. It's white people who update those websites. They just work with the Canon D5s, take pictures of the slums and put them there. Nobody shows you. Actually, I have a post on one of my travel website, my blog, showing the Uganda they never show you on TV. I was somewhere that was like, is this in Uganda? I was so shocked and I got so offended. I'm like, who feeds us information? That's where you doing this is so important. I can't tell them to Google Uganda. What are they going to see?
Actually, that's right. Yeah,
that's
that makes sense.
What are they going to see?
Yeah.
What I do is I give them my blog. I'm like, check it out there. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm like, yeah.
Or even just go. They should go there and see. Then they will learn.
They're so poor. Man, they're so poor. No. Trust me. Read books on finance. I love Dr. Dev Ramsey. He just tells you 75% of Americans don't have more than, they don't have, I want to quote him right. They don't have at least $300 in their bank accounts. No, that was in Uganda. No, it's in America. They have less than $1,000. So travel is expensive, and sometimes people confuse it that just being white means you're rich. That's wrong, okay? So they don't have that access to travel, but still, you are the voice they have. Somehow we have to go an extra mile. I remember I was in Malaysia in this hotel, and I entered, we're sharing the lobby, and this white man caught everything he had. It's like, I cannot stand near a monkey. He walked away. I was like, wow. You just at the lobby with your backpack, camera, traveling. I was like, wow. And you're there, so you have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But you realize that you're the only African the mate ever met. How you handle such a situation. It's sad that we have to go the extra mile. It's sad, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
We have to be nicer. It's sad, but we just have to represent, because we represent a whole other people behind us.
Right.
And that's why I get it back. We are the representative they can see. They may not be able to. What they're going to see on Google is a kid with the belly out. And that's what Google shows you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's definitely right. I'm glad you corrected that. Because in my head, I mean, that's what I thought at least the least they can do. But you reminded me that even if they go to Google, you will still don't get the pictures. So I don't know unless they listen to our stories and bringing like African people who to talk about the stories and talk about things that are happening. But yeah, I'm really grateful that I've had you on the podcast to hear your opinion, like about different things and about different topics. And I feel like you're the kind of person who I would love to bring on certain topics, and we just share like what our opinions are. And like sometimes we might have different opinions, or like what you just say. Like my minds were telling me to tell those people to go to Google and Google it, but then your minds were telling like even if you tell them, they may Google. So something like that, like just teaching each other and just learning from each other's perspective and what we think. So I really appreciate. Is there anything else that I've not asked you about? I mean, we could talk about anything, like a lot of things, but like, is there anything else like you would want to touch base on and you want to talk about that I've not at least touched on?
Of course, there's a lot we can talk about. It's an open question and it's a difficult one. Yeah. So you pick a topic.
No, I won't pick a topic, but I'm just. Oh yeah, I think something I've not talked about is your workout ethics, like your workout systems. Like I want to talk about that. Like you like what keeps you motivated with the workouts. I follow your workouts too, and like what keeps you motivated. I just got into a Peloton bike, but they also have classes, like you have instructors on the screen that helps you with body weights and lifting weights and all that. Like what motivates you to do your workouts, and what do you do like in a day?
Yeah, thank you. So I read a book, The 5 a.m. Club. It's a good book. If you're reading, read it. Another book by Dr. Don Corbett, which let food be your medicine. It's a good book. But what really motivated me was the death of my dad. And of course I was into health, just because you can. We had the opportunity to have gyms and stuff. But when my dad died quite younger, he died at 63, that woke me up. He woke me up. So that started driving me. And I'm like, okay, I come from a family where people are American obese. And you know how Africa is. When people have some little money, they become fat. It's sad, but that's how it is. So that was a checker for me. I was like, okay, I don't want this to repeat in a certain way. So, and just wanting not something to repeat. In the book by Dr. Sandhya Adejala about the mountain of ignorance, he shows you that wishing doesn't change things, but getting informed decisions changes things and how things can be done. So I was like, I need the right information. So I realized if I want to live up to 100, as I tell everyone, I need to make changes. So that pushed me into fitness. At first, when I was young, when in my 20s, I wanted to have a big body. Okay, look good. And that's what I thought looking good was. But I realized that fatness is a disease. So I had to cut however much I wanted to get a big body. I needed to be fit and to stay healthy. And that motivates me. So the way I feel after working out, and it doesn't have to be a lot of working out. Of course, people want to get into, the little things. You don't have to get into those details. Just do something. Okay.
Right.
Just getting up and walking for 30 minutes is enough. That's it. Just making, because you know how we work. For example, for me, I work on computers. I stay sad. I don't want to do that all my life. So I need something that keeps me straight and motivated. So working out is that. And so much research is out there, how workouts help your mental health, how workouts help your body. But the whole thing is all about living up to 100. That's my target. So if I'm going to live 100, I'm not going to be lazy.
Right.
So that motivates me.
Yeah, I really like that. And that's something to think about, like even when you have a family, like you want to be able to play with your kids whenever till like they grow, and be able to do all different things for your kids, because when you get a certain situation in your life, you might not be able to do these things for your kids, and that's something to think about. But yeah, I appreciate that you talked about that, and it's something to motivate me. I need to get into it. I just want to be fit. Like my goal is just like you, like I'm not too big. I just want to be able to do what I can do, be able to like do something, run, walk, and do something. So yeah, once again, I will just appreciate you. I have a few questions that I ask towards the end. One of it is like, what has been your life lesson at this point in life?
Wow, that's a good question. I think what has been my life lesson is, one is, there've been many, but it's the world we see out there is good. I mean, talking about people, but family is more important. Yeah, and that still comes out of my dad's death. It's a lesson I've learned the hard way. My dad cared for the whole world, but that kind of took him away from me. And I've healed from that. That's why I can, talk about it freely.
Yeah.
And so I realized that the most important purpose I have is to be in my children's life, to impart my values, to be the best father they've ever seen, and to be the best husband to my wife. And I think that comes with learning and letting go of your ego and reading so much, getting information. It's so important.
Yeah.
I think that's
one
lesson I've learned. Learning never stops. Yes, sir.
Yeah, learning never stops. And like the more knowledge you can get, please get it. It will help you sharpen your brains, and you as a person get a better understanding. The other question is kind of similar in the same line, but what gets you excited about life?
Woo! What gets me excited about life? First of all, it comes from the book about Ricky Warren, Purpose-Driven Life. My dad gave it to me when I was around 17. It woke me up, man. It woke me up. So I discovered that I'm a good motivator, okay? I discovered that because I could sell anything. Like we used to have those Nigerian movies, and some movies are just boring, okay? But when we went to exchange movies from our neighbors, I could sweet talk a movie, and guys believed me. I was like, okay, I can either use this for good or for vice, okay? So for me, motivating other people and giving them hope really gets me. I get amazing stories from people who just watch your stuff and like, oh, I didn't know it was that nice. But you realize that just waking up and being a source of joy, a source of hope. And since I'm in education, I want to see those kids. They're like, they call me teacher. They think I'm Obama, okay, because that's the only black guy they know. So they're like, oh, teacher Obama. So it's like they're just excited. These guys are happy. Thinking about black people being happy, just looking at them and giving them excitement, because we've been in COVID, we've been online, but those kids get there 20 minutes before the class. And they're excited. And I thought everybody happy. I thought it happens to everybody, but you realize, you talk to your colleagues and you're like, oh, okay, it's different. So that gives me so much joy. I'm like waking up to inspire another person, to motivate another person. Wakes me up so happy, man.
Yeah, I don't think there's
Yes, sir.
anything that can beat that. I like that. So my final question. This is a second. No, it's not like signature question I will ask. But my final question, like, who would you like to see on my podcast next? And you're gonna help me get the person who.
Wow. 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 That's a hard question, by the way. You know that.
Yeah,
You know that.
that's why I put it there.
Because so I'm gonna give a general answer. Okay. With what you're doing, man, it's so good, Bonnie. What you're doing is so good. Just
Thank
bringing
you.
out African voices, and they don't have to be big, they don't have to be,
Mhm.
but just letting people share their story.
Right. Yeah.
Man, even though you stop now, these episodes are gonna stay there for life.
Mhm.
That, thank you. So,
Thank you very much.
whatever you feel, who should be here next? Honestly, I don't know because
Mhm.
there's a lot of guys doing amazing things. But I have a guy called Mr. Musinguzi. He makes beautiful YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does traveling stuff, and I like it by the way because I'm into travel,
Mhm.
so he excites me. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of other people. I mean, I can't recommend enough, but I think that's the guy who has just clicked him up. Let's see. Let's
It's
find a
funny
way of
because
getting it.
I look at your videos and the way you produce your work. I'm like, hey, this guy does a very good job. Like I really like
Oh, thank
your
you.
presentations. I mean, for me, I won't say like, but I try to look up to you like what the way you do your videos, the way you do your Instagram, and just because right now I do my videos, I do my graphics, I do everything, trying to teach
You're
myself
doing a
because
good job.
this is like a hobby, and like right now. Like you can see my background. People on the YouTube won't see this, but you can see I
For
record in my
sure.
bedroom.
For
Because
sure.
I have another angle camera on the side, but because they will see just the front of like
Yeah.
this. But like
Yes.
I record in my bedroom because I mean we're buying a house probably today. Actually, we'll put an offer on a house. I'm buying a house today, so hopefully I get that.
Congratulations,
But
bro. That's
I
good.
need
I love
I
that.
want to I want to have my own room for just this like my studio. When I was
Yeah.
renting, still I had my own room for my podcast. It looked really good from the earlier episode, but when I moved because I switched jobs and now we live with
Yes.
somebody, so you don't really have enough room. But I still want to keep doing these videos, so I had to be creative
Yes.
and see
Yes.
how that. But yeah, I look up to your work and I see it's really good and thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
that. And I tap in. And one thing I like is when I was making my podcast, I say we rise by lifting each other up. So when you lift me, I lift you, and we both just rise instead of like, oh my god, this guy has a lot of followers. This guy has a lot of. I don't like him. Like I'll just block. You feel people feel like it's a competition. Like I've had people look at me and like, oh, that's a competition. Oh, he's
Yeah.
now doing this.
Yeah.
But I'm not in competition. I'm just trying to learn. I can use however support I have
But
to
that's the
just
disease our people have, man. And
yeah.
I'm sorry even to God. For me, before then, around 5 years ago, I had like I was chasing the followers,
Mhm.
And being black, I travel. I mean, Singapore, and I get caught at the airport. That scenario, because you're black somehow,
Yeah.
and and they needed a certain amount of money on me immediately, which I didn't have. I had over thousands and thousands of friends on my Instagram. I text over 20 people that nobody could lend me $50. I was like, wow. I
Wow.
text over $100. Nobody. I was like, wow, this is wrong. So that woke me up. I'm like, this is fake.
Hmm.
I
Exactly.
quit building that side. So even in my content, I'm not trying to be something now.
Hmm.
It's for the people who want the knowledge. It's for the people who want the
Yeah.
wisdom. I'm not trying to be hype. No, no, no.
Hmm.
Just clapping for me. And we can't translate that into economics. It's
Hmm.
wrong.
Yeah.
So I learned it the hard way. So whatever you're doing, if somebody gets time even to listen to your content, know they're
Hmm.
there
Yeah.
because they are real.
That's
So
that's really good.
that's an encouragement, man.
I like the encouragement you put on the towards the end. But yeah, Mukiibi, it's been a blast to have you. I don't know how many times I've said bye, but I've really
I
enjoyed
know.
this episode. I'm glad I didn't
Thank
make
you so much.
any questions, any pre-questions. So we had this flowed really good. I liked having you, and
Thank you so
I
much.
thank you for you sacrificing time to just be here with me. And I know it's late
Thank
there.
you.
You guys are like, it's
Thank
like
you,
9.
man. Yeah, it's 9. I'm just gonna go out and get something to eat. I'm on holiday, so I'm not at home,
Yeah.
so it's different.
Oh yeah, I
I
remember
have
you
to,
told me. Yeah, you told me
yeah,
you're doing
I
this.
just have to find my way out of doing things. But when you're black, you're the only black there. They're like, yeah,
But anyway,
somehow people are nicer these days.
yeah.
And before you go, by the way, I was somewhere, and then a group of Chinese in a big bus, okay, stopped, and their tour guide told them that that guy is a movie star because I was black, okay? I didn't know. So I'm looking with my little camera, and then this Chinese woman comes and stands next to me, and the husband goes, takes a picture, and the whole line of Chinese. What happened? But I was trying to be nice. I'm like, I don't want to cause a scene, And I asked after that, what happened? The tour guy said, they thought you were a movie star. So I don't want to break. I was like, wow, this is good. This is good. It's a good way to represent us. But I don't know where they use those pictures for. But yeah, it works.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Thank you
But
so much.
yeah, thanks, man. Thank you.
Hey there, I am Bonnie Kibuka, the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching my video, and don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend. Tune in every Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time for a new episode about my podcast. And for more information about this podcast, follow me on my Instagram page, talk_show_256.